In two drafts, as Panthers general manager, Dan Morgan has yet to draft an offensive lineman. And yes, we've talked a lot about a tackle. But what about a guard? We'll discuss one prospect right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council. And did you know that in the 2 years that Dan Morgan has been the president of football operations and general manager of the Carolina Panthers, that he has yet to draft an offensive lineman? And maybe you've heard somebody say that this offseason, as that has been a talking point, as clearly I think Carolina needs to draft an offensive lineman. I said that prior to the signings of Rasheed Walker and even Stone Forsythe and Luke Fortner. I feel like it makes a lot of sense. They need depth there. As you've seen guys like Austin Corbett go to Buffalo, Brady Christensen, he's still available, but do you want to continue to have Brady on this roster? Cade Mays, he's now up in Detroit. Chandler Zavala last year of his rookie deal. They need to have some guys that can develop and can be depth and potentially be the replacements of Robert Hunt and Damien Lewis in the future in a couple of years. And one guy that Carolina is looking at is Chase Bisontis, an offensive guard from Texas A&M University. And we already know they like themselves some Aggies. Damien Richardson, UDFA from 2 years ago, signed, came to Carolina, played a lot of games as a rookie, not so much last year. And then you look at last draft, they traded up there in the second round to draft Nick Scorton, also from A&M. So not surprising that Dan Morgan and this Panthers coaching staff and front office have their eyes on Bryan College Station yet again this offseason, as they are at least scheduled or have had a top 30 visit with Chase Bisontis, the offensive guard from Texas A&M. Taking a look at his background, freshman All-American back in 2023 at A&M, SEC all-freshman team, started all 13 games, 12 at right tackle, 1 at right guard. And look, in the NFL, as we saw with a guy like Aggie, it's not all that surprising to see someone get drafted high and to play and start every game on the offensive line. In college, that is still rare. Offensive line is a developmental position, even at the NFL level, but especially at the collegiate level, because a lot of these guys that may be high 4- or 5-star prospects, they're not playing against competition that really is going to let you know whether they're going to be able to make it out on Saturdays, let alone on Sundays. I have seen many of 5-stars who played against a bunch of chubby kids end up going to college who could not play at all. Now, Bisontis very clearly was not one of those guys, because he came in A&M and was able to play right away and earn again freshman All-American honors and, of course, SEC all-freshman team honors as well. In 2024, he then moved inside the left guard, where he started 10 games but did miss 3 due to injury. Then last year, his final season at A&M, he was third-team All-SEC, played in all 13 games, 12 starts again at left guard. So he is a 3-and-done type of player. And y'all have heard me say this. I love the guys that are highly touted, coming out of high school, go to college, start immediately, ball out immediately, and then 3 years later, they're like, I'm out of here. I'm going to the league. I don't know if there's a number as far as a hit rate on those guys compared to the dudes that spent 6-5 years in college just bouncing around trying to get whatever NIL money they could. Not to say that Bisontis didn't get paid a ton at A&M, because he definitely got paid a lot of money in Aggie land. I just like the guys who come in, they're focused, they do the right things, and they know after 3 years, oh, I can get drafted, I can head out of here. Now, he may not be a first-round draft pick. I have not seen anything that leads me to believe that he will be that. I was actually looking back on my Texas A&M notes for the upcoming season. Yes, I do notes on a ton of college teams, and I had him coming back to college. So I got to update that. I haven't gone back to those. Last time worked on those back on the 12th of January. So I'm really behind on some of my college notes, as I've been pretty inundated what's going on here with this podcast and the offseason with Carolina Panthers. But yeah, 3 years and he's done, and now going to the NFL. Looking at his PFF grades, he earned a 62.4 overall grade last season. That was 300th out of 686 qualified offensive guards in the FBS. So yeah, not that great. His PFF, maybe that's all of college football. I don't know. His PFF pass blocking grade was a 70.7. That ranked 303rd out of, again, 686 qualified offensive guards. His run blocking grade was 62.7. That ranked 219th. So based off of PFF, He wouldn't even be drafted based off of his production last year, but he was third team all SEC, and PFF is just one way to look at it. I am not an offensive line expert. I'm not going to ask somebody to come on to talk about Chase Bisontis, at least at this moment in time. But overall, I'm going to go off of the fact that he started day one in the Southeastern Conference, and that he was able to play at tackle, move the guard, and still earn all SEC honors on his way out the door last fall. He did play 795 offensive snaps season ago, allowed 12 total pressures in pass protection that included 1 sack and 3 hits allowed. That is pretty good. And then was flagged for only 8 penalties. So that's a pretty stout player. He's 6'5", 315 pounds. Going back and looking at his production score, which again, Next Gen Stats draft model analyzes historical NFL Combine Pro Day and college production data to predict a college prospect's chance of success in the NFL. Production score was 70. That was 11th out of all the guards that were there at the Combine. Back in Indy, athleticism score 85. That was 5th. Total score 78. That's 4th among all the guards, again, at the Combine. So that's pretty good. And in prospect grade, 6.34, which equals eventually will be a plus starter. And that's what you're looking for. Quick overview on him. Bisontis is from Lancerline of NFL.com. Bisontis is a tough, well-schooled guard. He lacks ideal length, but he brings heavy hands, good footwork, and plus core strength to the table. He plays with ideal strain and stickiness to sustain blocks. He has plenty of nasty when it needs to. When he needs to. He's consistent as a move/zone blocker, and when working downhill, he can be outreached, stacked, and shed. The way that they describe these guys is so ridiculous. When his hands are first, whatever, screw it, because I just can't read this out loud, and it all just sounds ridiculous. Bisontis projects as a future starter with plenty of upside. Let's not even go over the strengths and weaknesses. For what it sounds like, he's a guy whose arms aren't that long, and that could pose an issue for him at the next level. While he does have a strong core, good balance, toughness, that's what you want to see out of him. So let's get away from all the strengths, weaknesses, the overview. He projects to be a future starter with plenty of upside. So how would he fit to Carolina? How would he fit into Carolina next season? We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Financial stress is something a lot of people are carrying right now, and it's not just about numbers. It can affect your sleep, your relationships, and your overall mental health in ways that build up over time. And the reality is, struggling with money doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it just means you haven't had the right kind of support. It's something I've thought about, how easy it is to put pressure on yourself financially without really talking about it. Therapy isn't about financial advice. It's about working through stress, the anxiety, and the emotions that come with it. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served, BetterHelp makes it easier to get matched and start focusing on what you need. When life feels overwhelming, therapy can help. Sign up and get 10% off at BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. That's BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. All right, let's get to the stuff that you're really here for. And what these prospect of the day shows, because like, as I told y'all, what the draft, and if I'm honest, as far as my feelings about the draft, it is probably my least favorite part of the year, because I tell you what I think and it doesn't really change, and nothing is really happening newsworthy wise to really advance the conversation. Maybe I just suck at talking about the draft. That's why I bring on the college people. Did it last year, doing it again this year, have more guests lined up for next week, and then finally be draft week. And then we can go on and just react to what these guys are, well, who's coming to Carolina in May, and things get a lot easier for me. But just trying to sit here and break down prospects, like, I mean, not a great endorsement of the show, I understand, but I'm trying my best, or at least I'm trying a little bit. But yeah, Bisontis, all SEC guy last year as a freshman, played a lot. PFF grades, whatever. Combine, he's 6'5", 315. Good prospect grades. Looking at Lancerline scouting report, he has plenty of upside to be a future starter. So that's what you want to see and what you want to hear. Strengths, weaknesses, whatever. He'll get in the league. He'll have to fight his way to even play on the field. It's not going to be easy, as I think we all should know. How would he fit into Carolina? Robert Hunt and Damien Lewis, they're going to start this upcoming season. Now, Damien Lewis is a guy, much like Mike Jackson, that I felt like had outperformed his deal. And I don't think there's any doubt that he has. Now, he's been, of the two, just because Rob did get injured, but even back in 24, PFF had him graded higher. And he was huge when it came to the run game last season, back when Rico was healthy and even when Chuba was out and all of that. D-Lou's a good player. But I wonder if they decide, knowing that the cap situation could be a little hairy next year, do they want to move on and have somebody waiting in the wings? Now, Rob Hunt, kind of similar situation. He was injured last year. Will he come back and be fully healthy? You always have to have a contingency plan. Now, I don't think that Rob Hunt, Damien Lewis aren't going to be back as starters again in 2027. I would imagine that would likely be the case. Now, only time will tell, of course, but those two guys this season are going to be the starters, and they've both been really good when both on the field for the Panthers over the last 2 seasons and fix what was a clearly problematic area for them back in 2023, largely because of injuries, but also the lack of depth and talent. Enter Chase Bisontis. If you look at the depth right now, it's Chandler Zavala, who really hasn't been that good. It's Ja'Tyre Carter. It's Joshua Gray. It's Sadiq Charles, who has started in this league before, but all of them I look at as depth pieces, not guys that you're developing to be a starter down the road. Zavala, that went out the window as soon as they signed Rob Hunt and Damian Lewis to a bunch of money 2 years ago. Ja'Tyre Carter was fighting for a roster spot either last year or the year prior to that. But then he got injured, didn't make the team, but now he's around. I don't think he's going to be that. Joshua Gray, honestly, I have no idea who that is. Sorry to him and his family. Sadiq Charles, I think his time is probably past in this league to be that. So what Carolina really does need, now that you've seen Brady Christensen leave town, you've seen Austin Corbett, who was a starter for you, leave town, you need some quality depth at guard in the interior of the offensive line. And you also need someone you can develop who potentially could be your starter down the line. And I do think that a guy like Bisontis, who among the guys at least I've seen reported as far as top 30 visits, I've not seen a lot of guards. I've seen some tackle. Well, I really only think I've seen one tackle. Travis Burke from Memphis, who we talked about last week. They were at Blake Miller's pro day. They're at Caden Proctor's pro day. I don't know if they were at Monroe Freeling's down at Georgia, but it's been really tackle that we've been discussing. We haven't gotten really any discussion points about center. I'll have to go back and look and see if there's been any reports about top 30 visits for any more guards or centers. But as far as what I've seen so far, this has been a guy, or the only guy, that's been reported to be meeting with Carolina in, I would say, a serious fashion to potentially be a draft pick for them in just 2 weeks' time. So we'll see if that's how it plays out. But Chase Bisontis, an all SEC player, started for 3 years at A&M. That's the kind of guy that you're looking for in the draft for the Carolina Panthers. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, where I'm back with you on Friday answering your weekly Friday mailbag questions. At me or DM me, get those questions to me right now. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I will talk to y'all on Thursday, where I'm going to get some more help from our friends over on the College Sports Podcast Network, whatever. The Locked On College people are coming on. We're going to talk about corners. So we're talking Avion Terrell, Jalen Kilgore, Malik Muhammad, which means we're going to get Morgan Thomas from Locked On Clemson. We're going to get Chris Marler from Locked On Gamecocks. And our buddy Brad Kellner stopping back for a second time this week to talk about his buddy. I don't know if they're really friends, but his guy, Malik Muhammad. So all that coming up on Thursday here on Locked On Panthers. Be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all on Thursday.